Hey children, welcome to Station 7. So in Station 7 we're analyzing exponential graphs, just like we analyzed tables and we did analyze the equations themselves. So just a brief recap, because we've gone over this twice before already. B is the growth rate. It's what you're multiplying by to get from one number to the next value. And A is the initial value, which I've reminded you multiple times. This is the y-intercept, and this is usually the easiest thing to find out about a graph, especially of an exponential graph. So our directions here are to determine the initial value and the growth factor of the following graphs and use them to write an equation. So that's what we're going to attempt to do, and hopefully we can get through that pretty quickly. So if we look at this first graph, I'm going to zoom in here so you can see everything I can see. I see a couple things happening. So I first see this point here, and this point is 0, negative 1.5. And then I see my second point here, and this is 1, 4.5. Okay? So these, having two consecutive points like this is really great. Now consecutive points means x was 0 and then the next number was 1. So these are consecutive. 0 and 1 are consecutive numbers. And it's great to have these 2 points for a specific reason. One, this tells me my A value, because remember, our A is our y-intercept. So now I know A is negative 1.5, which means the only thing I need to figure out is what is B. And if you remember from our tables, B is whatever I multiply by this number to get to this number. And this is a negative 4.5. So if you're like, man, I really don't know what I would multiply by negative 1.5 to get negative 4.5, I have some news for you. You can always take the second value, this one, and divide it by the first value, this one, and it'll tell you what you should multiply by, because again, the reverse of multiplication is division. So for example, I can do negative 4.5 divided by negative 1.5. I can do that in my calculator. If I can do that in my head, that's great, but I should find that this is actually 3. So now I know what A is and I know what B is. I know that A is negative 1.5 and I know B is 3. So I can go ahead and use that information to now write my equation. I would write y equals a b to the x. That's what I know my equation should look like. So I can write y equals negative 1.5 times 3 to the x. I don't need the parentheses on that 3. I don't know why I put it there. I just felt like it. So that's my equation. There you have it. Okay, so let's take a look at this second graph. It looks a little bit different than the first graph, but it's still very similar. And again, I want to point out the first two things that I noticed, which are these 2 points. So again, they may not always give you the points. You may have to write the points on your own. I always suggest that you find 2 consecutive points, which means the ones that come right after each other. So this one is actually 1, 3. So 2 consecutive points. As you can see, I go from 0 to 1. That's consecutive numbers. And of course, this first point tells me my A value. It tells me A is, that's right, A is 9. And the next thing I want to know is, what did I multiply by 9 to get to 3? Now, some of you are probably saying, well, you didn't multiply, you divided by 3. But remember that for an exponential function to work, we are actually multiplying something over and over and over by the same value, not dividing. So if I'm dividing by 3, that is the same as multiplying by what? That's right, that's the same as multiplying by 1/3. So I've just figured out that my B value equals 1/3. And once again, I have the 2 pieces of information that I need in order to graph this. Not to graph it, it's already graphed, to write it down. So I have y equals a times b to the x power, and I have y equals 9 times 1/3. This one does have to be in parentheses, to the x power. And we're all set. I have those 2 equations there. So if you look at the next page, there are 4 problems there. And then if you look at the page even past that, there are 2 more problems. So go ahead, do as many as you can, and I will see you at the next and final station.